Morning. Have a seat right there. And you are juror number 75, correct?
Correct.
All right. A couple things before I turn questioning over to the attorneys. First of all, I'm going to continue to wear a mask, even though I've had a vaccine shot. You have plexiglass between us and in front of you, which also shields you from the attorneys who have their own plexiglass. I note all that just to say, if you would feel more comfortable taking off your mask or you think it would be easier to hear you, feel free to do so. Okay. Before I ask you any questions, I'm going to swear you in to make sure that all of your answers are under oath. If you would raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror?
Yeah.
All right. I'd ask that you pull up to the microphone just a little bit so we can hear you nice and loud. First thing, you filled out a questionnaire for this case. Thank you for doing that and returning it in a timely manner. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Gives us a lot of information to work from. But was everything true, first of all?
Yes.
All right. Is there anything on that questionnaire that you think might have changed, or since it's been several months, maybe in reflection you thought, oh, I should have included this, or what I put down here wasn't quite accurate?
No, I think the only thing at the very end was, do you want to serve on this? And I said yes.
Okay.
So.
Do you think that's changed?
Well, I have a couple questions. I'm not sure if it changed or not. So I don't know if it maybe at the end or any time. But.
Okay. Maybe we'll kind of go through that in case there's other issues that can take care of this. First of all, well, and just to expand on that, it's all right to say something different than what's in your questionnaire. Mm-hmm. Like I say, things change, you realize something was inaccurate, or something should be added to, or maybe an opinion evolved, mm-hmm. including, do I want to serve on this jury? So it's all right to be different than what's in your questionnaire is what I'm saying. Okay. Secondly, you're not supposed to read any newspaper articles or any media, but we realize in the months since you filled this out and the trial, as you sit here today, you might have inadvertently been exposed. See a headline, blurb on the news, something that may be related to this case in some way. Obviously not your fault, just happens. Mm-hmm. Has anything like that happened to you where you've been exposed to some new information after you filled out the questionnaire?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would say the only headline I've seen in the last period of time was that a number of jurors have been selected, and that was last week when it first started.
Oh, okay.
And that was just a headline. I think it was 6. And then I watched part of this live stream.
Okay.
And the part I watched was basically you telling a guy that he shouldn't be watching the live stream.
Okay.
So I really didn't glean anything from that, but I was just trying to figure out. My wife was like, hey, it's live streaming, and
just to kind of see the layout and how it works.
It makes me feel more comfortable. I didn't know what the camera situation was, so.
Okay.
Yeah. But then as soon as I heard you do that, I haven't watched a thing again.
Okay, and you haven't heard anything about any of the parties specifically, or related cases or related developments of any sort?
No.
All right. And the attorneys might go into more specific detail about some of what you've been exposed to, so I'll leave that to them, though. Okay. But for right now, nothing to add to what was in the questionnaire?
No.
Okay. Now, the whole point of all this is that as a jury, you have to decide the case just on what you hear in the courtroom. And everybody that we've talked to has some knowledge about the case, some more accurate than others, some more in detail than others. And it's not a question of that, but whether you can put all that aside and decide this case just on what you hear in the courtroom as if this had never been in the news at all. Mm-hmm. Do you think you could do that?
I do.
All right. Now, you were given that long list of witnesses.
Yep.
Anybody on that list familiar?
I didn't recognize anybody.
Okay. We also said that the length of trial would be probably about 4 weeks, mm-hmm. and that's an estimate, as you've already seen.
Yep.
There are delays occasionally, might be more, but occasionally it's sometimes less than what people estimate. So it just depends on a variety of factors, some of which we can't control. Sure. Does that work for you, or can you make it work?
So that was kind of my big question is, I've been unemployed since COVID, basically. I was unemployed. So job hunting pretty regularly, right? Gotten pretty far in a lot of things, hoping to get an offer this week.
Okay.
If that happens, great. Don't know how I work that out. I don't even know what I should say to the potential employer now or at time of offer. If it doesn't happen, I've got a lot of other leads, right, that I've been in the process of. How does that impact that? I probably won't be able to follow up on those, and right, it'll just go cold, and I got to start all over again in 4, 5, 6 weeks. So that's a concern.
Okay. Sounds like could cause a financial hardship if set you back, essentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been set back for 8, 9 months now, so hoping to get something now, but
All
that
right.
would definitely be a hardship, I would say.
You said there's one that's even in the pipeline. You might get an offer this week?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The question is, do you feel that's a significant hardship to serve for 4 weeks starting on March 29th?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. It's a financial hardship if I lose this opportunity. If the opportunity says no, we can't wait 4 or 6 weeks or indeterminate,
Right.
then I've lost the best opportunity I've got. So I don't know. I mean, they might say, yeah, no problem. I get it's your civic duty. I have no idea. Right?
Okay. And you think you're going to hear this week?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's assume for now
Okay.
You get the offer and they're fine with it,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't get the offer and you're continuing on.
Okay.
Don't get the offer, just not related to your jury service, because they don't know about that, right?
Right.
Right. In either case, let's assume those. Otherwise, do you think it'd be a hardship to serve the 4 weeks?
No.
Okay. Okay. Let's kind of proceed under that basis, but
Okay.
we'll keep that in the back of our minds.
Alrighty.
All right. Do you have any questions for me before I turn it over to Mr. Nelson?
I don't think so.
Okay. With regard to Juror 75, Mr. Nelson, you may inquire.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for your patience. I think you were here yesterday as well.
Yep,
Sat
no
ar-
problem. Yeah,
sat
I was.
around for a while. And
Yeah.
well, thank you very much for being here again. I want to ask you, just before I kind of get into the general stuff in your questionnaire, about your employment prospects. I know that you had indicated at the time you filled out your questionnaire you had lost your job because of COVID.
Yeah.
That's right?
Yep.
And so you've been unemployed for some time?
Yep.
Okay. Is your spouse working?
She is.
Okay. And with your spouse's income, are you able to pay your bills and mortgage and stuff, or is it?
So with my spouse's income plus the unemployment that's been extended, which is a little bit up in the air also, plus the extra $300 from the government, we've been making ends meet, absolutely.
Okay. And you've been actively searching for employment, and you are expecting or hoping for an offer this week?
Yeah, since about April, May, until last month, I was working as a contract, commission only, to help build out a business. And hoping to make a lot of money doing that. For a lot of reasons, it didn't pan out. So the last 6, maybe 8 weeks, we've been really hardcore looking, right? Searching, getting the resume up to speed, et cetera.
Okay.
So in that time, networked through to get a bunch of opportunities that I've been pursuing, and I'm probably in the mix on 3 or 4. One is really hot right now. Yeah.
Okay. And so, so if that job offer panned out and they were okay with you, being on a jury service, or
Yeah.
or starting you, sometime in May, basically.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't be worried about your ability to pay attention during this trial.
No, not.
If, however, you were not extended that offer, how would that impact you?
If I did not get extended the offer and I was on the jury,
Right.
I don't know, I would assume at night I would be at home and I would probably be able to continue to prospect, probably not effectively, because, you know, when you reach out to people, it's, you don't really get to talk to people from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., whatever. So I'd probably have to put it on hold, I would have to say. I mean,
Okay.
won't do me much good to keep looking and get
Right.
excited about things that I can't really follow up on.
Would you be sort of hyper-focused on not having a job? Like, do you think it would affect your ability to pay attention here in court?
I don't think so. I mean, I think I would come to grips pretty quickly with, I can't pursue it at night, so there's nothing I can do. So I would just wait, right? I'd have to just get okay with that.
And so I guess the ultimate question, sitting here right now and the uncertainty, would it be a hardship for you to serve on this jury?
The biggest uncertainty right now is, you know, we've deferred our mortgage, for example, because I don't have a job. That's coming back into reinstatement right now. So it's going to be tougher to pay that without unemployment and, you know, the extra government stuff, which I don't know how long that's going to last. So if we had all that, if I knew that was all certain, could we create a financial plan for the next 6 weeks to make it happen? Probably. You know, we could probably figure it out, dip into savings or whatever you have to do. If we don't have that extra funding, then it'll be tougher. So I would say, yeah, it's a bit of a hardship. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, sir, is I'm going to ask you a series of questions, kind of just generally first,
Okay.
Just to get to know you a little bit better. Thank you for your, again, honesty about that, but
Yep.
just some general questions, and then I'm going to turn and focus on some answers that you gave in the questionnaire.
Okay.
Again, I know the questionnaire was filled out a couple months ago, and no one's trying to trick you. I'll likely just read the question and then what you wrote and ask you to expand on some of
Okay.
those things. Okay. So if you and I were to meet under different circumstances, what are a couple things that I would learn about you in our first conversation?
That I like coaching. I think you'd learn about me that I'm about my kids, right, and other kids and my community. That I have a good sense of humor. I'm trying to curb today. You know, that I work hard, family life, enjoy sports.
Okay, good. At some point, you received this packet in the mail, right?
Yeah.
And you had obviously heard about this case before receiving this mailing.
Yeah.
What was your first reaction to learning that you were a prospective juror on this particular case?
I was surprised. Didn't even know it was coming down the pike, really. And I had pushed it off because I think the first time I got a summons or whatever, I was, whatever it was, 6 months before, and I was starting this new potential job. So I pushed it off for 6 months, so then 6 months later comes and I get this, I'm like, oh, great.
Okay.
Nothing negative or anything, it's just kind of a surprise. Wow, this is something, you know. And I didn't know if it was for sure this one or if it was, you know, until I read through it deeply.
Okay.
You know.
And, I mean, did you have any concerns about your personal safety, your family's safety, COVID-19, any concerns generally about participating in this trial?
Not really. Definitely not COVID-19. Family safety a little bit, but I didn't know what to expect or not know. So I think I'm learning more and feeling more comfortable. At the time, there was a general concern, but I knew I'd learn more, so I wasn't too worried.
Well, when you came downtown yesterday and you saw the government center and all of the build-up around it, what were your thoughts?
I haven't really seen the news for forever about anything like this, so I assumed there would be some kind of protesting or something going on, and there was nothing. I haven't been downtown since forever, right? This entire year, or last 8-9 months. So I was just kind of surprised by the scarcity and the sparseness of everything. The building didn't really, I'm not familiar with the building, so when I saw the walls, I just assumed that was what it's going to look like.
I mean, in terms of, what about like the military presence?
I thought it was a lot. I'm former military, so I didn't faze me or anything, but I was like a little surprised at all the protocols that I went through to get in here,
Okay,
which was good.
all right. When you came in yesterday and the judge kind of talked about anonymity and the efforts that we're doing to try to protect your anonymity, how did that make you feel?
Feel good. Not sure how it plays out post-trial, and what that looks like for security and anonymity, but
Well, at some point, right, it's very possible that your name would be publicly released. We don't know when or under what circumstances, but how would that make you feel?
I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing I can, obviously there's going to be people, no matter how it comes down, happy and upset. So do you want to be associated with that? It's not ideal, but this is what it is, right? I mean, this is part of your civic duty. And
Okay. And I just, I want to just follow up. You asked, or you went on to the live stream for a couple minutes at some point.
Yep.
Was that yesterday or before you came down yesterday? Or?
No, it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. It's either the first day that because after the first day I called in and realized all the same numbers were coming in on Tuesday. And I'm like, I knew there was an issue. So then I think it was Tuesday, then I looked at the live stream.
Okay. And did you watch it for how long, do you think?
I had it in the background for less than an hour.
Okay.
But I only watched when I heard the judge asking that guy about watching the live stream.
Sure.
That was great.
Okay. And then that's when you turned it off?
I turned it off right then.
Okay. So did you hear, me questioning prospective jurors or the state?
I think I heard you. Yeah, I don't remember any questions you asked or
Okay.
who the people were, but yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, let me ask you this. I understand you have a couple of, young adolescent children, is my understanding. And you've obviously worked in a professional career before. So in your personal life or in your professional life, can you think of a situation where you've ever been called upon to resolve conflict between two people?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you approach the resolution of conflict between two people?
So throughout my career, right, professionally, it's a little different than dealing with kids where you've got a little more authority. In the professional world, I'd say it's first understand what's the conflict about, and then be listening, be open to hearing what they're saying, and open to that, acknowledging it, and then have a process for open discussion, and then allow the other side to talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, obviously there's a conflict here in a kind of a big sense, which is the state of Minnesota versus Mr. Chauvin.
Yep.
And part of your job as a juror is to resolve that conflict, right?
Yep.
But then also, if you were to be selected as a juror in this case, you would potentially run into conflict within the jury room. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to break it into two scenarios for you. One scenario is two groups of jurors, right, sort of emerge, and they have conflict over the meaning or some piece of evidence, right? The meaning of some piece of evidence, the significance of it.
Yeah.
And then the other juror, one group is saying this is the most important piece of evidence, and the other group is saying no, 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 no. How do you approach it if you're trying to resolve that conflict? And then is it different if you're a part of the conflict, like you're on one side versus the other? Does that make sense? It's kind of a two-part question.
So the first part, if there's two challenges, right? Two problems. One feels more important. I like to whiteboard, right? I would probably it's more interesting for people to understand if you can whiteboard it out, or if you have the ability to do that, so people can say, here's issue 1, issue 2, and get thoughts on both. And I think that's a way to prioritize or rank, right? So you can say, okay, here's why we feel this, and here's why we feel this. And then oftentimes it doesn't matter where you start, you just gotta pick one.
Okay.
And then parking lot, things that come in that aren't pertinent to that specific discussion. And then just lead people through the discussion. If I was involved in one of those, oftentimes I just let the other side go first, right? Let's hear your opinion. Let's make either pluses or minuses and systematically go through it. Otherwise, personally, I see people get really, either emotional about it, which we would try and refrain from, or they get really attached and say, I'm not moving from my position because I don't think you guys understand me, or you don't understand my thought process on it, and I can't articulate it well enough for you. So it's better just to whiteboard it out and work through that.
And if you were to be, are you the type of person that if, you have a very firmly held position on something, right? Are you willing to re-examine your own perspective on that issue?
Yeah, I think that's very important, absolutely.
But would you simply agree with the other side in order to build consensus, or would you kind of, you felt it was really important, would you dig your heels in?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I would dig my heels in. I mean, that suggests to me that you're not open to listening. I think at some point you've gone through enough discussions about it and you make your decision. But yeah, I think I'm obviously open to the discussion, right? And listening to other people's perspectives.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So part of your job as a juror too is to assess the credibility of various witnesses. Mm-hmm. So can you think of, again, in your life, a time where you've been called upon to determine if someone's telling you the truth about something? I think you said you do some coaching, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's where my mind jumped. Yeah, I think at the youth age, it's it's easy to question that when you know what you know, and you can see facial things, and you can see how they act, and hear what they say. And because I've been through it, right? I probably did what they were doing at some point. So I think I've come from that. So yeah, I think was your question just have I seen it?
Yeah, have you seen it, and how do you then analyze whether someone is telling you the truth?
I think body language is a lot of it. I think how they talk, if they change how they talk, if you've been having other conversations, what you know about them, what you've heard them say in the past. I think I get a good gut feel for it. I mean, and as you mature, as you get to my age, I think you have a general sense, gut feel about people and how they answer things.
Okay. Can you think of a situation in your life where you've been 100% certain you're right, only to later learn you're wrong?
I'm sure there's been those situations. 100% sure I was right.
Well, just hypothetically, how do you're 100% convinced, right? And all of a sudden someone gives you the definitive evidence and you're wrong, and
It's something I generally would laugh about.
Okay.
So you got me. You're right. you proved it.
Uh-huh. So can you have the ability to kind of take that information and apply it to future situations, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Sure.
All right. So one of the jobs as a juror, again, is to decide this case on the evidence that is presented in court, mm-hmm. and apply the law as the judge gives it to you. All right? My question is if you are looking at all of the evidence and then the judge reads you the law, can you apply the law even if you think the judge is wrong, or that the law for some reason should be changed?
Can you say that differently?
Sure. Let's say that you disagree with some principle of law. You're reading it. This is the law that the judge has given you. And you say, I can't possibly be right, or I think that this is goofy. We need to change this law. Can you apply the law as the judge gives it to you?
Yeah, I would think for sure.
Okay. So I'm going to turn to your questionnaire, just ask you some specific follow-ups.
Okay.
I know you said that you have been, obviously prior to filling out this questionnaire, you'd been exposed to the media and discussions and things of that nature about this case. And a little bit after in terms of how many jurors have been selected and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhat unavoidable.
Somewhat. I feel like I've done a great job, but yeah, for the most part, it's unavoidable.
And just within the past few days, you've not come across or heard any other information about this case?
Since I watched that part of the live stream on Tuesday of last week, I think I haven't seen a single thing.
Okay, good. All right, so before I get too far into this, I want to ask you about, there's a lot of questions in here and responses about a video that you've seen.
Yep.
There was a video that was taken by a bystander. That video ultimately went viral and became the basis for multiple news stories.
Mm-hmm.
There were also videos that have been released into the public sphere in terms of body-worn cameras from police officers or surveillance from local businesses. Have you seen, which of those videos are you referring to when you were discussing this?
The only one I remember seeing is that original one.
The bystander video?
I guess it was a bystander video, yeah.
Okay.
The longer one.
And when you say I believe you say you've seen it 6 or more times in your questionnaire, are you talking about the entirety of that original video, or are you talking clips on media?
I think the question was about, at some point, at some a level, have you seen it all or part of it?
Mm-hmm.
And I said 6 more times, 'cause I think I've seen clips of it. I think I've only seen the entirety, maybe the first time I saw it, maybe twice. I think once, but maybe twice.
Okay. So like you were on your personal social media, it comes up, you watch the whole video, and then obviously paying attention to the news to some degree.
I don't think I saw it on social media. I think I saw it on the news first. And that's the only time I watched it in its entirety.
And like it had a link or something where you could click and watch the whole video? Or were you watching the news and they played?
Watching the news on TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you watch that, you've seen that video, I think we're talking generally about the same video.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrote, you were asked to kind of explain what you had heard or what you knew about the case, right?
Okay.
And you wrote a couple of things that you heard about it, on local news. You remember that Mr. Floyd was near or by a car, I think you wrote by a car, maybe trying to get in. A brief struggle with police officer happened and George Floyd was taken to the ground and the officer restrained him with his knee on his neck. You remember some things that Mr. Floyd said, some general length of time, right?
Yep.
And ultimately this kind of became a national and international news story, and you say, in watching many sporting events around the world, players took a knee in remembrance.
Yeah.
So like in the Super Bowl or in various sporting events, how did that make you feel about this case? Seeing sort of this international...
I felt good.
Okay. It felt good, why?
I've traveled internationally quite a bit the last few years, and I think I think it's a positive cause. I think there's positive, negative aspects to it. But I think what people are rallying around, it was a positive cause. And if they do it in a positive way, I'm all for that. I think there's so much, last 4 years, last 1 year, so much divisiveness that, when I see people coming together for something positive, something that is progressive or, makes us evaluate potential change, then I think that's positive. So yeah, it makes me feel like we're moving in a good direction versus a divided direction.
Okay. You were asked to, the question, from what you have seen, read, or heard, do you have a general impression of the defendant? And you checked a box that was somewhat negative.
Yep.
And then you were asked the same question about Mr. Floyd.
Yep.
And you checked neutral.
Yep.
and you were asked why do you feel that way, and you left that part blank.
I didn't need to. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it now. Why do
Yeah.
you have a somewhat negative view of Mr. Chauvin?
At the time when I read the question, do you have a somewhat negative view? I kind of racked my brain and thought, what do I know? And I knew that a guy had died. I knew he lost his job and he was going to be being put on trial. So I think that gave me a negative view.
Okay.
Somewhat. I mean, I don't really have much other knowledge of him or his past or anything.
Okay.
So,
And ultimately, the question becomes, and it's perfectly okay for people to form an opinion. The question is, can you set aside those opinions and decide this case on the merits and the evidence as presented in court?
yes.
Okay. And so even if you may have formed a somewhat negative impression, you can start from zero and you will apply the presumption of innocence. Why did you have neutral feelings towards Mr. Floyd?
I think I didn't really know much about the guy. I saw news articles that I didn't really remember at the time. I just knew he was like either a brother or father or something positive, right? That he, but I also heard news articles that maybe he had prior been on drugs or at the time been on drugs, don't know. But I was like, some positive, some negative, pretty neutral. I don't really know anything, nothing concrete that I know a fact or something that I could say very positive or very negative. So I was pretty neutral at the time.
Okay. You were asked if you have ever talked about George Floyd's death with your family, friends, coworkers, or discussed it online, for example, on social media, and you checked the box yes. Did you ever post opinions on social media about the case?
No, I don't think so.
So you were talking about your general discussions, like with your kids, your friends, your coworkers?
Yeah, I don't really even recall talking about it with my kids, but I was working from home at the time, so I didn't really have coworkers to talk to. I think it was just some buddies. It was a news event.
Okay. And what you wrote is you had general discussions about what we saw, the length of time he was subdued, and I heard from someone that George Floyd had drugs in his system, and you wrote, I don't recall expressing any opinion.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of talking about it generally, right?
Yeah, and nobody had it. I think at the time we talked about it was very early days, and I don't think anybody knew.
Okay.
Oh, I heard this, I heard that, but
Right. Was there something about the length of time that Mr. Floyd was subdued that troubled you?
no, I mean, I don't think it troubled me. I think that was the thing, right, about the video that most people, that I heard about, right? So I think, I don't know if it troubled me. The guy died, so I think it's troubling in general.
Sure.
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay. You were asked whether you believe the community was negatively or positively affected by the protests that have taken place since Mr. Floyd's death, and you wrote both positively and negatively. Positive, a large showing of support for many races coming together. Negative, people took advantage and rioted.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the people who were protesting are the people who caused the riots?
Do I think that people that were protesting caused the riots?
Or
No.
were participated in or are responsible for the riots?
No.
You can distinguish between a peaceful protest and a riot.
I can. And I don't know the answer. I honestly don't know if there were people that were part of the protesting that got upset and became part of the group that rioted. That seems reasonable that could have happened. But generally, I feel like there was a positive group that were out there to protest and bring awareness to something that they believed in. And people took advantage of it. I don't know what overlap there was.
Okay. There were a couple of questions here that you indicated you had a desire to answer privately.
Okay.
Your Honor, would this be a good time?
I think so. What we're going to do is, under the rules, I can provide that the audio be turned off as far as what's being broadcast.
Okay.
And so I'm going to order at this time that the audio be turned off.
and so we're back on audio.
All right. So turning to, again, to your questionnaire, sir, there was a page that had several sort of broad statements, and you were asked to kind of rank your opinion about those statements from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Do you remember generally that process?
I do very well.
All right. The first two are, I think, somewhat similar, and I just wanted to ask you about it. The statement is, discrimination is not as bad as the media makes it out to be, and you somewhat disagreed with that. And the second statement is, blacks and other minorities do not receive equal treatment as whites in the criminal justice system, and you somewhat agreed with that.
Yeah.
Can you just explain what's your thought process between this, why somewhat disagree or somewhat agree with either of those things?
Well, I think the first question was about, is the media overstating kind of discrimination? And I was like, no, I think there is discrimination to some level, and I think they're reporting it somewhat accurately. I don't know the extent of it all, but yeah, I think there's an issue, and I think they're reporting on it.
Okay.
And the second question was?
Blacks and other minorities do not receive equal treatment as whites in the criminal justice system, and you somewhat agreed with that.
Yeah. So, in general, I think from what I've seen, right, there's more people of color in jail systems and prison systems, and I think in general there's less income and education in the general populations, and I think with those things come more money, and with more money I think you get better representation, and I don't think it's set up to be exactly even for everybody.
Okay. You were asked, police in my community make me feel safe, and you strongly agreed with that.
Yeah.
You feel police perform a valuable service and keep your community safe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've led scouting stuff for a long time. We always go to the police station. So I get familiar with them there and what they do and how they think about things and their procedures a little bit, just high level for kids, right? But yeah, I mean, I've never had negative thoughts about it.
Okay. If you had two people who were testifying, and one is a police officer and one is a citizen, do you automatically ascribe more credibility to the police officer simply by virtue of the fact that he or she is a police officer?
More credibility in general. If it's a topic related to law or law enforcement, for sure. In general, would I just say maybe?
Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's important that we kind of process through this.
Okay.
Two people are watching some event, right?
Yep.
And one is a police officer and one is not a police officer. It has nothing to do, it's a car accident. And the police officer says the light was green and the citizen says the light was red. Do you believe the police officer, his or her version, simply by virtue of the fact he's a police officer?
I would tend to.
Tend to? Okay.
Yeah.
And can you maybe we have a moment, Your Honor.
Yeah. We're just going to discuss a little bit.
Okay.
You're 75. I'm actually going to release you from this jury, and so you're off jury service.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about reporting for another case unless you get a summons in the future.